This program starts in 10 minutes. This program starts in 5 minutes. This program starts in 2 minutes.
everyone. This is Deepthi Vijay Kumar. A warm welcome once again to Hyderabad Runners' weekly webinar series, Beyond the Track. We hope you're taking the necessary measures to stay safe and healthy. Hyderabad Runners promotes running, fitness, and active lifestyles through its umpteen volunteers, mentors, and ambassadors. A few of our initiatives include Couch to 5K, the Club Run, Outdoor Kids, Train and Shine, Kids Run, and our flagship event, the Airtel Hyderabad Marathon or the AHM. In our endeavor to keep you constantly aware and educated, we bring you Beyond the Track, a live webinar series of conversations with some of the highly distinguished experts in running and health related fields to equip you all with both the theoretical knowledge and practical training. In this 28th episode of Beyond the Track, we are honored to connect you to Krishnan H. Harshan, Principal Scientist and Molecular Virologist from CCMB Hyderabad. As we strive to create a smooth learning experience for you all, I request you to post your questions to Krishnan in the comments section. Devyani Haldar, a distinguished scientist herself and an active member of Hyderabad Runners, will be interacting with our guest and facilitating today's session. She is a staff scientist and head at the Laboratory of Chromatin Biology and Epigenetics, CDFD, Uppal, Hyderabad. Without further ado, I'd like to invite her to introduce and welcome our speaker for today's anticipated session. Over to you, Devyani.
Thank you, Deepthi. Hello, everyone. Our guest for today, Dr. Krishnan, is a very well-known molecular virologist with over 18 years of research experience. All of you must be wondering what a molecular virologist, a scientist, is doing in a runner's forum. Well, 2020 has been a challenging year, and all of our lives have been affected by the COVID-19 infections and having the virus around. So as runners, our running schedule, our fitness, our health as such, and overall our life has been affected. And we have so many questions and confusions because of so much information in the network and media, and also contradictory results from the hospitals about the patients as well as in research field. So it's better that we hear from an expert so that we clarify some of our doubts. Dr. Krishnan is not only a virologist. He has been closely studying all human viruses. He has done his PhD from Indian Institute of Chemical Biology, Calcutta, and following which he has carried out his postdoctoral training at the University of Kansas Medical Center, Kansas City, USA. Since 2007, he has been a scientist at the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, Hyderabad in India. And currently he is a principal scientist at CCMB. So his research is focused on understanding host-pathogen relationship in human viral infections. He has mentored many students, several PhD students and other research staff, as well as undergrad students. So in his study about the host pathogen interaction, here the host is us, the human, and the pathogen is such as the coronavirus here. So, and he's in the process, when the COVID-19 outbreak happened, Krishnan and CCMU was in the front line, and it was one of the first research centers, the research institute, who has set up the testing, coronavirus testing. Their protocols were adapted by several other research institutes, and actually people came and trained there also, and then started new centers. So he has been very, he contributed a great way. And apart from this, their lab was one of the second lab, apart from after NIV Pune, which isolated the virus from the patient samples. So virus isolation and culturing enables people with drug testing as well as vaccine development. Like if that is so, it is very important contribution. So they have also developed a platform technology to screen drugs against the COVID-19 virus. And he has been also actively involved in the vaccine program of CCMB. So he has been instrumental in Indian and contributed greatly towards the fight against the the SARS COVID coronavirus 2 infections and management and etc. So we'd like to welcome you, Krishnan. Um, uh, so we are eagerly waiting here, and we are very grateful that you and your team has risked your lives, and so that people in general can stay safe. It is a very important contribution. We are waiting to hear from you your challenging time, as well as what are the exciting results you have got, and how would it contribute to the vaccine development so that the disease can come down. Over to you, Krishnan.
Thanks, Devyani. Thanks very much. And thanks for the nice and very extensive introduction. And I thank Hyderabad runners for allowing me this opportunity to interact with the public at large, who probably are quite eager to learn about what's happening around in the COVID times. So it's been kind of an unusual talk for me because I'm used to presenting generally in scientific meetings, but it's been my pleasure to talk to people and then try and explain what I know about it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to talk to you for the next half an hour or something about the general things about COVID-19, and then try and address a lot of questions so that we can hear our doubts. So as the title indicates, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to hopefully give you basics about the disease COVID-19 and the virus, and also try and help you clear a lot of confusion and then myths, right? So, our laboratory, as Devyani said, set up diagnostic testing in CCMB. This was actually the first research institution in India to do that, and then that actually was a trailblazer. Our protocols were shared with other institutes, and they all started doing that now. Several institutes have actually contributed multiple different ways now. So that has been a great thing to get started. Now, we also isolated the virus from patient samples and cell cultures, which was very, very enabling to do multiple drug screening to identify potential drugs, develop anti-sera, and also vaccine. But I'm not going to talk too much about my own work. This is not a scientific talk, so I'll not talk much about my own work, but I will try and explain to you about the disease and the virus. So first of all, what we need to know is about knowing the enemy. So as we see, the people talk about COVID-19, which essentially talks about what it is. So it's what is it also is because it's coronavirus-induced disease, and that is the name of the disease. And it's caused by the virus called SARS-CoV-2, the virus responsible for it. And SARS essentially means severe acute respiratory syndrome, which is the symptom that you get when you are infected with this virus. And so the virus is actually very, very small, as you see here. This is a simulative image that I borrowed from CDC website. So you would see it's typically not going to be very spherical like this, but this is an imaginative figure. And you would see this red stuff, which is actually the spike, which represents a protein on the surface. And in the cross section, it would look something like this. There is just a genetic material, which is made up of RNA. And there is a viral, a proteinaceous shell, which is called capsid. And then it is covered by an envelope, a lipid envelope. And these are a couple of images, electron micrographic images that we took within CCB, so that we can actually see these spike-like materials radiating from the body of the virus. So this is how it looks like. You can see the virus shape as well as the size varies significantly, but they do have certain common features. So definitely, as I said, it is caused by a virus, not by a bacteria. So the difference between bacterium and a virus is that viruses don't have any life outside the host. So in this particular case, the virus does well, it replicates very well inside a human body, but then the moment it is outside our body, it is no more able to replicate. It's not able to make its own more and more of its own, while bacteria and other living organisms can do that very well. Right? So that's very, very important thing for you guys to know. The symptoms typically include, you might all know about it, but then I'm just going to reiterate that it's essentially a respiratory illness, starts as a respiratory illness, similar to your common cold. You might get a cold and cough and also fever. And in this particular case, cough is kind of very, very extensive, and it can actually last for a few weeks. Fever you would get for about a maximum for a week or something like that. And fever is actually an indication that there is active replication and the body is responding to it. Now, what is interesting about COVID-19 is that majority of the people, over 80% of the infected people, do not show any symptom or recover very, very quickly. But the rest 20%, the symptom becomes visible. That can vary from mild symptom to intense symptom. But in people, very few percentage of the people with comorbidities such as diabetes or high blood pressure, respiratory illness, or cancer, you would find a lot more severe symptom, which people have to be hospitalized and have to be put on the support care. It's been found that in a rare population, it also leads to sepsis, blood clot, and multi-system failure, which all make the situation very bad. So they need immediate attention at the hospital and they have to be treated. So one good thing that in the last 8 months or something, we have learned a lot about procedures for treatment of patients coming with this. In the initial months, the doctors had no clue what they're actually going to look at. Now there are much better therapy. We know that the blood clot is a very common symptom seen in people. So you need to treat for blood thinners, and now a lot of people are also treated with steroids. So we understand that a lot better now. The spread is essentially through nasal fluid or the saliva, right? Because that's where the virus is actually found very well, even though in most cases virus also enters other part of the body, but certainly not through skin. It is certainly not transmitted by mosquitoes as well. And you would find that the surfaces of places where you actually interact with other people, there are potential places where spreading can occur, because people would actually rub their eyes or rub their nose, and then your saliva would actually lie on the surface. And it's been a lot of people talk about, okay, how long can virus stay on the surface? And then in my opinion, it's been very, very difficult to explain it, because it depends on multiple other factors such as temperature, humidity, and sunlight. All these factors could actually complicate it. But by and large, the virus is quite stable. It can survive there for a few days. And then if you happen to touch the surface and then transmit that to either through your nose or through your eyes or your mouth, then the virus could actually initiate an infection. Right? And if there are people infected that, they have to be very careful. And some of the common, shared materials that through which the virus spreads are kitchen utensils, taps, doorknobs, and electrical switches. So as shown in this particular cartoon, what happens is this is a typical spread of the virus far distance from one corner of the room to the other corner, aided by, the person with the disease sneezes, and then that is actually spread out by the fan in the room, and then it reaches places and reaches the farthest corner, which is probably several meters away from the person who sneezed. So it's quite possible inside these offices and other closed rooms, the virus can spread very, very quickly. So what precautions that one would take is always wear a mask. always wear mask whenever you interact with a person. I mean, I'm not saying that you wear mask inside your home. That is not really required if there are no people with symptoms. But whenever you interact with somebody strange, you please wear the mask. Isolate anyone at home with symptoms. That's absolute important. And if there are symptoms, please don't be afraid of it. Please go ahead and get tested so that you know that you have a reason to believe that you don't have COVID or you have COVID. So it's very important to differentiate that and then don't live in the fear. Do not share materials or objects with somebody who is known to be positive. Stay away from that person, right? And for a society like us, for a country like us, more testing and isolation still is the key, even though we see that, you know, the social distancing norms are kind of loose these days. You find people walking around without mask and coming into close interactions without using masks. So that is certainly not good. So the key to defeat the disease is by testing and isolation stay. Now, there's a big difference between indoors and outdoors behaviors. For example, indoors air remains closed. So that means that if somebody has sneezed or coughed and the virus has actually been shed, they're going to remain in the air for a long time. And especially air-conditioned rooms where the air is going to be recirculated, they're going to be there. And usually outdoors where there's a good wind breeze or wind and also there is sunlight, they are going to be much less risky for the spread. And the bottom line is that even if it's outside, do not share any materials with somebody who is positive, right? And because of people would prefer to remain indoors and there is going to be less sunlight, it's likely that the cases are going to go up during the winter season, right? That's what is actually predicted. Now, when people go to work, please make sure that whether it is in the metro or a bus or even a car, please make sure that you are not touching places unnecessarily, whether it's a seat or common surfaces such as the holding rod or common areas such as toilet, bathrooms, and switchboards. All these places you have to be careful. So you feel that you touch somewhere with your open hand, then make sure you clean that hand with sanitizer or with soap. The same thing when you come home. Also make sure you discard your clothes for washing and then without other people getting to touch it. So with these kind of things, you can pretty much stay safe. You know, it's been quite convincingly shown that wearing the mask and taking care of these precautions can keep you really safe, right? But then that may not be possible for everybody because some people, such as doctors and those people interact with patients, sometimes doctors, nurses, and other practitioners. But for majority of us, we have an option. We have a choice to make to stay away from places or not dangerous places, to stay away from strangers, and to take care of yourself. Now that we know our enemy, how do we fight our enemy? So that's very important, right? So we fight as collectively, we fight as individuals, and what we do is we wear masks and we follow the social distancing norms. But as nations and as civilization, we have to fight the enemy at large, right? So how do we do that? So one of the ways by which we do that, I mean, clinically, how you do is with the drugs. Right? For a lot of diseases, you know there are drugs, very effective drugs, whether it is allopathic system or any other system, alternate system. That could be therapy. So this therapy could directly target, in this particular case, a virus or virus application, or could also boost your immunity so that your body can fight it. So, but interestingly, so far, no drug has been identified that has got a convincing effect on this SARS-CoV virus. Research is going on, and as you see, typically for a drug to come out into the market, the normal time is about 10 years starting from the time of research, initial discovery. So usually it takes such a long time because it has to go through multiple steps of efficacy and safety and reproducibility, shown to work in different kind of people, So all these things had to be convincingly proven before they come into the market. So it's going to take quite a while. But what people have been focusing on are drugs that are already approved for human uses, which are shown not to have so much toxicity. A lot of such repurposing efforts have been going on, but so far we have not been successful in identifying something that's been effective. Now, disinfectants are only good for surfaces and not for internal use. And also, please do not take medicines prescribed by non-medical practitioners, by hearsay or whatever. Please don't do that. And Ayush formulations may be supportive, might boost immunity, but none of them has been shown to cure COVID-19 directly. So if you are sure of that they don't have much of side effect, probably they are going to be good for boosting your immunity, right? Now, on the other hand, apart from drugs, there is also this antibody therapy that you must be hearing quite commonly. One of the first things that people talked about was plasma of recovered persons, which would be flooded with a lot of antibodies that you might hear. These antibodies are essentially proteins that fight against that target the pathogens. So these antibodies are quite specific, and if you can actually get good neutralizing antibodies that can neutralize the virus, that's going to be very, very important. Unfortunately, so what people do was collect plasma from the recovered persons and then inject them into people who are in real sick conditions. But what we have found is that it's actually not successful as we originally thought. That's primarily because in a lot of donated plasma, there is not enough neutralizing antibodies, right? But one alternate is that they can be generated in other animals, such as horses and camels, from which you can actually collect them and then purify them and then make them much stronger and then inject into persons. So this antibody generation has also been going on. Research on that has also been going on quite well. Some of them have been quite successful as well. Now, so far there have been no medicine that would treat COVID-19 as much as we know. There are steroids and there are other drugs that can support the conditions. There are blood thinners that would reduce the possibility of stroke and other things. But apart from that, there is no drug that targets the virus, right? So we have to wait for that. So while that happens, we all hear about vaccines. These vaccines are very efficient because if vaccines are successful, you take the vaccines a couple of times, as we have taken vaccines against several diseases like polio virus or several other things, measles, mumps. So the research, various research has been going on vaccine front. And in this particular case, memory is an important factor. Memory of the body, memory of our system to recognize COVID-19 causing virus and then fight against it so that the reinfection doesn't take place. You hear about reinfection cases, and that's primarily because the antibodies in the recovered persons drop dramatically over a period of 4 to 5 months, and then they're as bad as somebody who has never seen the virus, and they can get reinfected. So vaccine has to be effective in providing a long-term immunity, and it has to be unique against the pathogen. It should be very, very specific. For that preparation of that, we need to prepare large quantities of virus cultures or large quantities of proteins specifically from the virus. So some of those challenges are actually what I have listed here. Now, you must be hearing about various types of vaccines. So you can essentially make virus vaccine by inactivating the virus itself so that the virus is actually not going to cause a disease, but then they can generate an antibody response in our body. There are various other vaccines such as viral vector vaccines where you, like a Trojan horse, you send some proteins of the coronavirus, COVID-19 virus through some other less infectious virus such as, in this particular case, people use measles and adenoviruses for essentially delivering COVID-19 proteins. So these proteins inside our body would start generate antibody against the virus, and when the virus comes into our body, these antibodies can fight them. There are also nucleic acid vaccines. So okay, I'll just go back to this. So this adenovirus-based vaccines is what you're hearing about, the Oxford vaccine that is based on this adenovirus vaccine. So there is also this new type of vaccine that is being tried by the company called Moderna that you must be hearing, a US-based company where they deliver a messenger RNA into our system, which would essentially make this spike protein. And then, as I said earlier, this spike protein is poured into our bodies, so our body would make antibodies against them. And when the real virus comes in, the antibodies are good enough to fight against them. And there are also protein-based vaccines where you can purify certain proteins that are made in the laboratory and then inject into people. This is typically done, for example, in case of hepatitis B virus vaccine. This is a very successful method. So what several companies across the world have been trying all these different methods, and several of them have actually gone into preclinical or clinical stages. And in preclinical stages, you do the testing in small animals such as mouse or monkeys. And then if the vaccine is generating enough response, that means if they are able to induce the production of antibodies against COVID-2, then they will be taken into the clinical phase. And in clinical phase, there are 3 phases. In the first phase 1, you start with a small population, and then look at whether there is enough response to the vaccine and is it safe. And in the next step, phase, the number of the people is increased. And the last stage is phase 3, where a large number of over tens of thousands of people have to be recruited to study this. What happens is that in these people, the potential vaccine candidates are injected. And a few weeks later, their reactions are actually, the response is actually studied by looking at the antibody and also by looking how safe this is. So these 2 important factors are very, very critical. It has to be efficient in inducing immunity. It also should be very, very safe, right? And the challenge now we face is that it has to be tested in various groups of population, such as who differ in age, gender, health, people with various conditions, women with pregnant women, and nursing mothers, small children, old people. All these people have to be tested, and then the response in those people and the adverse effect, side reaction, all those things have to be studied. It's very, very important because historically certain vaccines have caused problems, right? So that's very, very important for us to know. That's exactly why the vaccine trials have been taking time. Otherwise, we are actually ready. Several companies have generated, for example, you must be hearing about Serum Institute or Bharat Biotech or Oxford, all those places, they have jacked up their production. They have actually started producing vaccines in millions and millions of doses, but then their efficiency as well as the safety have to be confirmed. So the moment those data start coming in, and the regulatory agencies would actually approve them for the usage, and then we would start getting it, right? One of the questions that all of you will have is that will we ever have effective vaccine against COVID-2? One of the challenges in vaccine production, especially in a RNA virus like this, for example, in dengue or even HIV, which has been here, we know that for 30, 40 years, there has been no vaccine against it because they keep changing constantly. So the antibodies are not able to find the changed virus, right? While the virus continues to spread, replicate in our body. Same thing with dengue, several other viruses, we don't have vaccines still. But fortunately, we are fortunate that actually a COVID-2 virus mutation rate is actually quite low. That gives us a lot of hope that vaccine is going to be quite effective. And also because it's a pandemic of something unprecedented, that's something that we haven't seen in our lifetime. So because of that, all the countries and multiple companies have come together with collaboration. So that actually has been quite productive because people share their knowledge and people share their expertise and to reach a common goal. So that's very important. And regulatory agencies are less stringent, because the virus itself is killing a lot of people. So if the vaccine is going to be even 50% effective, I believe that regulatory agencies would approve it, because if you take care of 50% of the people, that means that you're significantly going to bring down the number of new infections. And that's one way, that's the easiest way to contain this pandemic and then make it much less spread in nature. And the initial results in clinical trials have been encouraging, even though you hear a few cases here and there that, because in one person there has been adverse effects, so the trial has been put off, that kind of a thing. But by and large, these are going to happen, and probably there are going to be a few adverse effects in something like a few cases in a million cases. So that's something that we all have to expect. No, you don't have to expect that it's going to be safe in all the people. It's not going to be, as we do find even in the vaccines that are in the market for various other diseases. There have been some cases, for example, in polio cases, polio virus vaccine. There have been 1 in a million cases where people get the disease, right? So there is going to be an effective vaccine soon. I expect that by the middle of next year, 2021, we'll have quite a lot of vaccine in the market. But on the other hand, it will take years to vaccinate everyone on Earth, because even though we produce about over 100 million doses a year, that is good for only for about less than 10% of our population, right? And then remember, these have to be repeated shots have to be given to the same individual, so that vaccine is going to be effective over a long period of time. So it's going to take years. But hopefully companies, industries are going to jack up their production, and then there are going to be multiple companies already, coming up with various vaccine studies. And so hopefully we are going to be able to increase those numbers and then, achieve this in a couple of years, I hope. But remember that for the entire world to come back to normal, pretty much everybody on Earth has to be vaccinated, or else you would be scared to travel to places where there is high cases of endemic COVID-19. Now, how do we stay safe? One of the things that we do despite this exercise, right? And we work out, we stay healthy. I don't have to really explain to you that exercise is certainly very, very beneficial in keeping health. It boosts immunity, keeps you positive and mentally strong. And there are a lot of indoor exercises that are available, that are there now. People, whether you can follow yoga or whatever online, there are so much of avenues for keeping yourself fit inside home. And I would actually wait for gyms to go into gyms at least another 6 months. I'm not, because that's primarily because most of the gyms are closed, using AC. Sorry, closed means closed environment, and using air conditioners, and then people come and share the equipment. So I'm not ready yet. And absolutely do not wear mask while working out, because you need good oxygen and supply of oxygen. Now, now that I covered about our fight against the enemy. Now, if you're still confused about the enemy, I'll try to clear that through some of those cartoons from WHO website itself. So a lot of people think about wearing mask while exercising. As I said earlier, please do not wear mask while exercising, and make sure you are away from other people while exercising. If you are, please do not exercise as a group or something very close to each other. Please don't do that, right? Prolonged use of mask can be uncomfortable, but then it's been shown that a mask like this, surgical mask as shown here, they don't stop the flow of air, oxygen. So don't worry about that while you, if you're not exercising, while you're in the resting condition, in places where there are other people, continue to wear your mask. Don't worry about that. How do people recover from it? I think the answer is, you already know, majority of the people, over 80% of the people recover very, very quickly. But if you have a fever, and if you have now, most of the people, you check oxygen levels, oximeters are at home. So please keep using them. If the oxygen levels are going down, seek medical attention. Don't stay home and then because you are afraid of hospital. Please don't do that. Alcohol certainly, even though alcohol can kill the virus outside your body, it's certainly not going to be able to do that inside your body, because alcohol in general is not a healthy thing for your body, right? Now, drinking other things such as methanol, ethanol, bleach, as some of the politicians have, famously said, they are absolutely bad. Do not take any of those things. Right? I think it's very funny, these times people say that a 5G mobile network can spread the virus. This is something connected to, what people get confused with, I believe, the computer virus or other things that can affect your system, your gadget. I know it's very funny though, but then this is something that people have been talking about. 5G cannot spread COVID-19, period. Now the thing is that you may test at home, or I may fine, I may have recovered from COVID if I can hold my breath for 10 seconds or something like that. If there's nothing scientific basis in that, you can still have COVID, but then you may appear to be fine in the respiratory. But in a lot of cases that we have been finding, some of the mysterious cases, you have the virus, you may look like you are recovered, but then all of a sudden you collapse. So if that is certainly not an indication that you are free of COVID. Taking a hot water bath is certainly not going to kill the virus inside your body, because your body already has about 37 degrees Celsius, and the virus is able to beautifully replicate in that high temperature. So it's not, certainly outside temperature is not going to affect it, right? It's not going to kill the virus inside your body. And they are not shown to be spread by anything like any vector, like mosquito or even other biting insects. They don't spread. They don't spread through blood. So a lot of people, we know that now ultraviolet rays are used as effective means of decontaminating surfaces and materials. And I believe that in the market, there are going to be all these boxes, that UV boxes that you can use at home to disinfect the plastic packets or whatever you receive from the people. They're good to kill the virus, but then you can't expose yourself to UV because they can actually cause cancer. So don't try this at home. Vaccines against other things such as pneumococcus vaccine, they're not effective, or even flu vaccine, they're not effective against COVID-19. So there's no point in attempting any of those things. There's been a question on can rinsing your nose, that I think in local language we also call it nasium or whatever. Is that effective against COVID-19? My belief is that it can actually help in some way, but it cannot cure COVID-19, right? Because the virus is super fast in infecting cells, and once they infect the cells inside your nose, they can spread from there to other internal cells. And once that happens, there is no point in actually cleaning your nose with. But certainly it can reduce the severity of other symptoms such as blocks, nasal blocks and other things, but they cannot cure by themselves. Coronavirus affects everybody, right? But primarily more older people are more susceptible to it. The funniest part is that the young people who seem to be kind of seem to be resistant. That means they're not non-infectious, but they can be infected. They mostly don't show any symptom, but they are the biggest. That is the biggest problem in this pandemic, because these people look fine, but they continue to be carriers. They continue to spread, and they spread to older people at home. It's very important, even if you might actually be very healthy, but you still continue to wear masks in public and take whatever precautions that you need to do. Okay, so that's with that, I believe that I have cleared quite a lot of myths about the disease. Now I will come to my last part, which what is the future? What is going to happen to all our lives? Are we going to continue to live like this, or are we going to worry about COVID-19 all our life? There's no clear answer to it, but we clearly haven't tamed it, right? Even though cases in India has been dropping significantly over the last 2-3 weeks, this is a typical case, as you see in the case of the United States, after one or two the peaks, it's actually has gone to the third wave. And our population is pretty much, we are human beings as they are. We are not very different from them. There's nothing special about us, except that maybe we have a better immune system because we don't live in very as hygienic conditions as they live, which is directly correlated with a lot of lifestyle diseases. But apart from that, we are also going to be subjected to the same infection. So we haven't tamed it. And internationally, unless you clear that internationally across the nations, we're not going to be able to open our borders and have a normal life, right? So we expect multiple waves again. And my expectation is that it's going to be much more severe in the winter because of the closed environment. So we need to continue to take precautions. The virus hasn't actually changed in its potency. That's actually a good thing as well. And sometimes there have been some reports that there are mutations and that make the virus more potent. Fortunately, that hasn't happened. But the potency hasn't actually reduced. There is no evidence to show that the potency has been reduced. So we need to continue to be guarded against the virus. Will the vaccines be effective? Most likely, that's my guess. Diversity is not much, unlike several other viruses. So that's also a good thing, so that the vaccine is going to be effective. But certainly we would need multiple boosters. And with that, we would hopefully be able to end the pandemic, but that doesn't mean that the virus will completely go away from human population. Might remain in some certain pockets and remain as seasonal infection. Certainly they might eventually become less potent. They will live with human beings without causing much severity, might become something like our regular flu, but they are going to be there. That's my guess. So what is in the future? Right? Most likely the pandemic will end sometime next year, in the middle of next year. It's still quite a good time. And by then schools and other social places will be back, because ending the pandemic is solely dependent on the efficacy of the vaccines. People keep talking about the herd immunity, but we haven't seen we are getting anywhere near that for some reason, because primarily because the protection of in a previously infected person is remaining only for about 3 to 6 months. After that, the person is good enough for a fresh infection. So for some reason, we haven't seen about 30% of the population infected, and that is nowhere near herd immunity that we are seeing now. So we need good vaccines to eradicate COVID-19. Expect that happen sometime in the middle of next year. And but once you eradicate this, there is a potential of other outbreaks, not COVID-19, but other viruses. So it's very important that we keep vigilant and there is enough surveillance on the ground looking for newer infections, such as this happened in China. So we need to expand our medical and scientific capacity as a nation for our country and also internationally. Right? So with that, we at CCMB do contribute through multiple ways. We have been screening several potential drug candidates. We also are very close to producing anti-sera in animals. We have been working with companies for optimization of vaccines and various optimizations of diagnostic tests. We are involved with surveillance of air and wastewater in urban conditions and also hospital care, and some of those are nice research work coming up. And we also study the biology of the virus, which is so crucial for us to understand the behavior of the virus and the behavior of our response to the virus, which would help us understand why different people respond differently. What is it that in people without any symptom, what is so unique about them? And actually, if we get to know about that, can that knowledge be utilized in order to take care of the rest of the people? So all this would require extensive basic and fundamental science, which would translate into technology. So this is Biosafety Laboratory 3 from CCMB. My students are working there. With their help, we have been able to do quite a lot of interesting things. And I leave there. Thank you all for listening to my talk, and I hope I have kind of kindled some excitement in you. and I'm willing to take questions if you have. Thank you very much. Over to you, Devani.
Thank you, Krishnan, for the very informative session. And I'm sure you have answered a lot of questions and cleared confusions among people. Commonly, many things I think I heard that you touched upon many such topics. And I have a few questions here from the audience and the viewers. And I myself have some questions. Maybe I will start doing that. This question is from Ritvik. Can COVID spread from food? If yes, how long does it stay on food? Food. Can it spread from food? Food. Can you hear me? Yeah. Can it spread from food?
Food, yes, okay. Yeah. Food. Yes, it's possible to spread through food, but not like hepatitis A or E viruses. It doesn't spread through water and food just like that. But then if the food is prepared by somebody who had the disease, and if the person happened to shed his saliva or nasal drops into that, it can be on the plate, it can be on the spoon, it can also be on the food. But if the food is really hot, the chances are unlikely. But it doesn't spread like other bacteria, like diarrhea or some of those.
Or the material could be a source?
Yes, material.
Yeah. But the surface, right? Surface.
Yeah, exactly, the surfaces. Right.
But the temperature which is there, we Indians cook food quite extensively,
exactly.
Right?
If the food is still hot,
the virus,
right?
Will it kill it?
Sorry, if the food is still
yeah, go ahead.
It is very unlikely, because we know that temperatures around 55, 56 degrees Celsius, about 10 minutes, the virus is killed. So if the food is still very hot, serve hot, it's okay. But then one has to be careful about the utensils, the spoons and the plates and the glass, surfaces essentially, like you said.
And eating out, is it safe still, or what did
Not
you
really.
say?
Not really, because people gather in places. There are all kinds of people who would come there. So unless you're absolutely sure that you are not going to spread into yourself, and when you go outside, you often have your family members, your children, who some of them who are not that serious about it, who are not conscious enough or throughout. So it's risky. I would suggest not to take that chance unless you sort for outside food.
Okay, thank you. There is a question from Rahul. Do I get instantly infected if I interact with a person, infected person? That's what.
No, certainly not. So what we know is, even though there is no direct answer, it's been kind of estimated that about 5,000 virus particles are required for anybody to get infected. One virus alone will not be effective. So if you interact with somebody the same way, it takes a while for the virus to enter your cells inside your cavities, and then they have to replicate. They have to make more and more of it, and then they spread. It takes about 3 to 7 days for those things to happen. So you would wait up to a week without any symptom.
So there have been cases where people have apparently not having symptoms, but they got symptoms after 1 month, maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks later, they tested positive. What would you say about that?
I think that's because
primary contacts, but they did not. People thought they have not developed the disease, but later on they developed.
It's unlikely having 21 days, but then I can't say that is not there at all. We need a lot more data there, because one has to be sure that they haven't come in contact with another primary contact person for another infected case.
Or is it does the immune system have a role here, that it was able to fight but then it finally gave up or something like that, or overcome by the virus.
Yeah, so research from our laboratory and other laboratory indicate that the virus is able to suppress the immunity, and immunity is kind of, our response is kind of delayed. But then 3 weeks and a month to me is very, very, very extremely rare. That means the person's immunity is pretty good. The virus should not be able to succeed.
So that brings some, you touched upon briefly. This question is from Nilima. As runners, we runners are proud of our fitness levels and think that we are immune to most diseases. Is that true? And are we in a safer position compared to someone who doesn't exercise regularly? I think you touched upon this second one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it depends on whether you have other conditions. A person who doesn't exercise without comorbidities might be more protected than somebody who exercises but with comorbidities. So
I think you touched upon this part briefly. So she's also asking, what is the advice you would give to a runner who are tempted to start back their training, organize some races and ease up on social distancing? If it is outdoor and there is spacious,
certainly
is outdoors.
Yes, certainly outdoors, keeping a meter away if you're not touching anybody else. Mask is not possible while you run. That is the biggest challenge. Right? If you can, smaller groups without, giving some good distance and under the sun, I think that is okay. But then I would still wait.
We can't wait. We're just waiting. 1 meter is a safe distance, there is confusion about this also. Is 1 meter a safe distance?
Yeah, people say 6 feet essentially.
Yeah.
That is indoor. But if it's outdoor, there is good breeze and things like that. 1 meter is something that I said minimum. So anyway, we all now understand the farther you are from somebody, the safer you are.
Yeah. I think
1 meter, there is no magic number. 1 meter is not a magic number.
In the drills and PTs and all, used to be always one hand away from each other. I think when lining up. If it is done like that, I guess it will be okay,
sure,
right?
That is still better if you can't avoid it. But then try to avoid it. Do exercise alone or in small groups, 2 or 3 people, but keep distance.
So I have been hearing people going out for a run, and if they go alone or are separated, but when someone is approaching them, then they put on the mask temporarily for a while, and then again they put it down.
Yeah, that's good.
So that is okay, but one concern is when a vehicle passes or a person passes, there is aerosol, right?
But the outside air in the open, it's not. They're not going to spread. They're not going to spread evenly directly coming at you.
Okay, so a passing vehicle, a person not wearing a mask, it can't spread through aerosol or something like that.
No, they're going to get diluted also.
Okay.
They're going
volume of the air.
Yeah.
Volume of the air is okay. Once infected with COVID, this question is from Sundar. Once infected with COVID, how long does it take for a normally healthy person to regain his or her full physical capabilities? Is it different for men and women?
Okay, that's an interesting question because
and also as next part is what role does age play? So you can
So the first part is we have seen that I think over 60% or over 60% of the infected people with symptoms are men, right? Than women. Nobody knows why. Within that itself, age above 60 again is not a magic number. It's some kind of an indication and a direction to all of us to be careful. Even younger people who are more sick and elder people recover. But that is a general advisory given because people above 60 tend to have several comorbidities and less healthy. So that is the major reason.
Yeah. So this question is from Nagesh. What is the best way to start off exercising for a recovered patient? Like who has just recovered from the viral infection? So
I would start slowly, maybe
feel
breathing exercise.
strong and then start back, I think.
Yeah, what I heard is in several people, the weakness remains.
Yeah.
Weeks. But some people are okay. If you're okay with it, but then I would still give it a week or two. Don't work hard too much because even though you may feel okay, your body is probably not still enough back to it. There are certain mysterious things such as small blood clots happening in the infected people, even though there has not been much of any fever or other symptoms. Blood clots go into your brain, so getting stroke. So one doesn't want to precipitate it by overdoing it.
Okay.
Body, do small things.
Start with walking and then
Right.
small walks.
Breathing exercises.
Yes, gradually start off.
Right.
So one more thing, I have a doubt. Like suddenly we heard that perfectly normal, not sick persons getting very serious suddenly. So what is it happening there? Like, is it virus is evading the immune system and then suddenly going up, or how they're dying also, some of them?
Yeah, it's been very mysterious because that fever is an indication that your body is fighting back.
Right.
Fever is a natural response when these chemicals, cytokines, are made in our body that would prepare our body to fight the virus, individual cells to fight the virus. So high temperature is also in one way good for us because that reduces the virus's ability to divide. The temperature for the virus is about 37 degrees Celsius. And when your body temperature is close to 40 or something, the virus makes it very, very difficult. So that's a way of fighting back by your body. So if that doesn't happen, that means that in these people, if virus is replicating, but the body is not really responding enough. Right? It can be the other way. The body took care of it right in the beginning. So it didn't have to go into the other extreme of fever and other things. In persons who are absolutely fine. But in several people, the virus is replicating, the body is not really responding. That means the virus is spreading to other parts of the body. It's been shown to infect liver, and also in heart, and also there are some cases in brain cells. So heart, I think it's probably a delayed response. So the moment for the body, for the virus to spread from initial site of infection like nose to other parts of the body, takes a few days, certainly. Heart muscle cells respond very differently. So it looks like heart becomes quite weak, even though outside it doesn't show up. That's one problem. And the blood clot is the other problem. So the blood clot can actually create problem for any tissue, or kidney.
Lungs, like breathing problem is the suddenly like ventilator, they need ventilator all of a sudden.
Yeah, sure. A lot of people without showing any symptom have pneumonia, like fluid collected inside their lungs. People
and they don't even realize initially.
They don't realize it. That's why that I said that 10 minutes holding the breath is not. And when CT is taken, that shows a lot of fluid inside the chest. These are things that we are yet to understand why this is happening, why this is so different from other viruses, why is it unpredictable as of now.
So one more thing is, what about I read somewhere that hyperactive, the immune system become hyperactive, and that is actually resulting in organ failure rather than actual viral infection.
Yeah.
So you
that is something about it? That is something in scientific terms we call cytokine storm.
Right.
These cytokines are, like I said earlier, these are chemicals that are secreted by the cells that are infected. So these are essentially messengers. They send messages to other cells, other parts of the body, that there is something going on. We have to be alerted. We have to check up our immune system. They are produced, sometimes these are produced so much by the infected cells. And the signals are, like I said, high fever and a high metabolism. You become so tired very quickly, and cells find it very difficult to get energy. So the entire thing, all of a sudden just collapses. We know that cytokine storm plays a major role in several patients, but how this is initiated, what is the real reason in why only in some people, we need to do a lot more.
Okay. So this is another question from Srishan. Does microwaves kill the virus?
Microwaves do kill the virus because microwaves, I'm talking about microwave, cookers, right?
Cookers.
So they do kill because they generate, you need water, and then also generates a lot of energy. And that would essentially kill everything inside it. So if you're boiling your food in microwave, yes, that would kill the virus.
Okay, another question is
Dry
from
surface,
Raj.
but a dry surface, if you're trying to kill the virus on a surface or a dry surface, that may not. You need water.
Okay. Wet heat.
Yeah.
So this question is from Raj. My wife tested positive, who rarely went outside, whereas I tested negative and I went out for only basic needs. I exercise regularly and run. I did not understand the reason here. Could you throw some light on this?
In a lot of times that this is a hidden enemy. We have no clue where this is coming from, and that is why I advise not to venture outside and take a chance. It can be a surface material that is shared, maybe a delivery boy, or maybe a housemaid who came,
Yeah.
and they may have touched the switches.
Right.
You overlook all those things. You're not conscious about all those things all the time. So at some point that came. You don't have to go outside. It can come inside through other things.
Another question is from Pratibha. Can we take good food, good supplements to raise our immunity? You touched upon briefly on it. Right?
Yeah.
Ayush.
I mean, essentially, if that supplement is known to, vitamins are good, right? I mean, so staying healthy is very important. I would say this because the biggest immune system in our body is our intestine.
Yeah.
Forefathers knew, but then most of our people in our generation overlooked it. So people who have diarrhea or constipation constantly tend to have other problems, low immunity. We now know that the bacteria in our gut are very important. So it's important to eat good food, less oily, more fresh vegetables, and fresh food. That's very, very important. And if you do that, you probably don't require supplements. But then if the supplements are not harmful, they're okay. Yeah.
Okay. But natural supplements probably is best because the other ones you never know whether some preservative or something might be there, so which might affect otherwise something else.
Right.
So another question from Sundar. I am a barefoot runner. Is it advisable to run on barefoot now? Can I get infection by a foot? Surface wise?
No, I don't think so.
If it touches, virus gets hooked onto your feet.
Technically, I don't think anybody has done this study experiment specifically. If you happen to have a wound in your foot through whether virus, somebody's spat on the road and then sputum. Through which, but very, very unlikely, because the virus, what we know is that virus needs the epithelial cells in our these are unique epithelial cells in our inside our nasal cavity and oral cavity.
So you, I think, touched upon the reinfection, like the antibody titer goes down rapidly. So there has been cases of reinfection. So what really drives it? Like, why does it go down? Is there anything known about it? Like,
What we know is that in these people who had a second time infection, after the first infection, the antibodies were, I mean, the point is that we are not fortunate enough to go back and study this person after the first infection, right? A lot of times we get to know that I was infected because I go and test and then I had maybe symptom. Nobody, no scientist or no doctor is following them up. They are not really looking at whether antibody titer is going down. They had a high titer and going down. So we can actually do prospective studies where we start following up a set of patients, keep tracking it. Those studies are actually going on at multiple places. Keep tracking the persons over a long period of time and see what happens. And those studies reveal that the antibody against COVID-19 is slowly and slowly dropping over a period of time. And that is different for different people again. Some people, so maybe exercising people would actually keep the antibodies longer. And I mean, that's a guess. Okay, people, that's a guess. There is no evidence to that though. But yeah, if the antibody titers go down, then quite likely they get second infection. And again, this memory that I talked about earlier, memory, there are cells that remember previous encounter with the same.
Yeah, right.
And so for some reason, those memory cells are getting depleted. And a large part of the vaccine research goes on how to improve, how to keep these memory cells active. We need to study a lot more. Those are some.
Also, the innate immune system is affected. I heard that virus somehow can suppress the innate immunity.
Right. But fortunately, not as bad as the HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, but certainly through cytokines or some other way.
So this is the last question. Is India anywhere close to herd immunity? How likely is it achievable?
It's very unlikely because we don't want to wait for that day. Before that, we would like to have vaccine. We are nowhere near because in India, it's very unique because most of the infections happen inside the cities. And in the rural population, the spread is slower, but then certainly they will catch up. It does not discriminate people from city or village. So certainly they will catch up, but they will be there. So we still do not know what is the herd immune requirement for herd immunity, whether it is 50% of the population or 70% of the population, considering that antibodies are very short living, the protection is not that long. We still, okay, like I said earlier, for the clinical studies of the vaccine, we need to know after one shot, after the booster, second booster, is to give us a long-term protection. Where studies carried out for years, we do not know. But might end up taking more than 2 or 3 shots every year until we eradicate it. So coming back to that question, we do not know. So because the immunity is lost after the first infection, they are going to be presenting themselves as again
fresh.
So herd immunity is not, I don't think in this case we are going to achieve anytime soon.
Okay. Thank you, Krishnan, for a very informative and exciting. I mean, we hope you cleared many of our doubts, confusions, and thank you very much for finding time.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Now I invite Ajay to present the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Devyani, for facilitating today's webinar. I'll just quickly go over a few key takeaways from today's talk. Like Dr. Krishnan said, always wear a mask. If you do have symptoms, don't be afraid, but do get tested. Don't be afraid of hospitals. It's for your own good and for everybody around you. Indoors is more risky. Outdoors with social distancing is less risky, but still chancy. And you do need to avoid taking a chance as much as possible. We do not have a perfect cure for COVID-19 yet, but some medicines and therapies have helped. Vaccines may take a lot of time to reach all of us. Herd immunity is not really probably the best solution to aim for. In the meantime, take steps to boost your immunity, keep yourself physically and mentally fit. Work out indoors as much as possible, but avoid closed spaces with recirculating air, and do not wear masks while working out. Very important for us also, because we do run and work out. Definitely maintains physical distance. Do not work out in a group. So if you're running separately, but then gathering for a picture or so without mask, probably not the best idea. This is going to be a long fight. We may feel tired of it all, but all of us do need to be vigilant and do our part in trying to slow the spread of this virus. Avoid believing conspiracy theories, practice guidelines suggested by authorized health professionals, not just by anybody and everybody. Um, so that's just a briefing. It was a very wonderful session. Thank you so much, Dr. Krishnan, for these valuable inputs in this 28th episode of Beyond the Track by Hyderabad Runners. Our deepest gratitude to you for taking the time out and sharing your experiences and especially educating us today. Not just that, we also thank you and scientists like you for playing such an important part in leading our fight against the COVID-19 virus pandemic. And our audience, we thank you for spending time with us today. We hope that you will be able to use some of the key takeaways from today's session in your life to keep yourself, your family, and everybody around you who you interact with safe. The recording of this event will be available on our Hyderabad Runners Facebook page, as well as the Airtel Hyderabad Marathon YouTube page. Please come back to watch again, share it with your friends, families, family members, and anybody who you think will find this information useful. It's extremely educational. It debunks a lot of myths around this pandemic and the virus. So do share it widely on your social media profiles so that others can also benefit. If you are sharing, do use the hashtag Hyderabad Runners and Beyond the Track. We will be back next Saturday at the same time, 7:30 p.m. with yet another expert and yet another interesting topic for you. Until then, this is Ajay Reddy from Hyderabad Runners signing off. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.